You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio. So, hi everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Changing Reality. My name is Harsha, and I'll be your host and DJ for today. So, Changing Reality is a segment on WQHS Radio, on Penn Student Run Radio. So, it's a show that features phenomenal people from all walks of life who are changing their own reality through the little things that they do in their day-to-day lives. So we'll be hanging out and interviewing social change makers, entrepreneurs, business owners, to even artists, musicians, and inspiring individuals from all across the globe. And also some of them here on the Penn campus. So we're going to hear their inspiring stories on how they changed the reality that they live in, while at the same time learning lessons that we can use to apply in our own day-to-day lives. And I wanted to do this show simply because I feel like there are a lot of people out there who do phenomenal things and make waves in the lives of those around them. And I'm super passionate about uncovering those stories and seeing how the rest of us can follow in their footsteps and change the world in our own capacity as well. Personally, I founded and run a youth movement called Ascendance here in Malaysia, which is where I'm from, that collaborates with our Malaysian Ministry of Education to help provide an alternative education platform for any student who wants to create their reality. Run by students who are themselves aged 8 to 21 years old, we work with students from elementary to high school through various sessions, programs, experiential learning activities, and projects that help them discover their passion and get them to learn about the world around them, as well as start their own careers while they're still in school. So to date, we've worked with over 6,000 students in 270 communities and have been very fortunate to help incubate a huge number of student-run projects, careers for young entrepreneurs, as well as social enterprises run by students aged 8 to 21 years old. In other words, we help everyday students change their own reality in little ways. So do drop any questions you have in the about that in the show chat below. But one of the big reasons why I wanted to do the show is actually based off the work that I do in Ascendance. Because one of the main things that we see in Ascendance is the importance of stories. And there's no one who has a better, more inspiring story than our guest speaker for today. So today we have with us Dano Falk, who is actually a serial entrepreneur with many successful businesses under his belt. He was the founder of Elixir that was recently acquired in 2019, and today is the managing director and founder of DefDevice as well. The best thing about Dano is he is someone who has pursued entrepreneurship since a very young age. He started off in Germany, which is where he's from, and eventually moved here to Malaysia, where I met him through ETIDs, a social business incubator, where he continued pursuing his businesses and bringing them to new heights. And he's personally someone whose story I've heard before and was incredibly inspired with. So I thought that it was only fair that I shared with all of you here, our lovely audience at Changing Reality. So without further ado, let's bring Dano onto the screen and hear a little bit more about his own experiences and the things that he does. Welcome, Dano. Do join us.
Hello, Harsha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be part of your inspiring group.
Well, thank you so much for joining on the show. It is a huge honor to have you here. And Danu, there's so many things that we can start talking about, from your serial entrepreneurship career to how you got your business, grew your business and got it acquired. I think you are no short of successes. But maybe we should rewind a little bit and start off with where your entrepreneurship journey actually started. So how did you learn about entrepreneurship? Were you implanted with a microchip with the whole entrepreneurship database like the rest of us here at Penn, or how did it start in a sense?
Yeah, that's a sweet question, because I think I only learned the word entrepreneur 20 years into my journey being one. So I think I didn't know I was one. Maybe not 20, but safe to say 15 years later, because I started age 14. I think that could be kind of checked off as my first entrepreneurial adventure when I started to repair bicycles in Cologne in Germany. That was my first kind of venture where I thought, there are so many broken bicycles. I love to repair bicycles. Why not? I buy broken bicycles, I fix them, I sell them back. And no, there was no Google, there was no eBay, there was nothing of that sort. But so it was all through ads in the newspapers. And yeah, I started doing that. I would say it was decently successful until my logistics chain kind of fell apart, which consisted of my mother, who was in charge to bring in the broken bicycles. So at some point, she just quit her job. She said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I didn't have a replacement. So this is where my first business kind of came to an end. But yeah, it was still fun. And I still love bikes.
Oh my God, that is amazing. And who knows, if your logistics partner didn't drop out, maybe there would have been. But no, I think that many 14-year-olds, we want to start things. Many of the audience today are probably young entrepreneurs as well who have brilliant ideas but don't really know where to start. So putting ourselves in the mind of 14-year-old you back then, lots of people have ideas. Lots of people try them out. But how exactly, like, what was the first thing that you did in a sense? Like, once you had this idea, like, hey, it's a lot of broken bicycles. Like, did you go talk to your mom and list her into this company? Or did you go and, I don't know, figure something else out in a way?
Yeah, today, if you ask me about my key to success, if I had to break it down to the most simplest entity, it would be set a goal and take action. So there are two things in this equation, you know. So I mean, we all have ideas all day long, you know. We take a shower, we have an idea. We see something on, we watch something, we have an idea. And that's all good. But having gone through the process of from idea to actually like building and even selling a business, there's so much more to that than the idea. And I think the most essential part is to actually like plan something, to take action on an idea. And this is what I see majority of people not doing. The next, and yes, I mean, my bicycle idea came to flourish or manifest it because there was a passion behind it, you know, because I loved like fixing bicycles. So it did resonate with me. It was not just some random idea that fell from the sky and I could not relate to it. It was something which, you know, I really wanted to do. So it becomes easy to manifest and to implement ideas when our heart is in it and when what we do and what we are kind of resonates with this idea. So until today, I think this is the essential part of any business, is to have this idea to solve a problem. I mean, like broken bicycles, like people want bicycles. Okay, there's a problem there, and I can do this because I love fixing bicycles. So these two parts have to come together. Some kind of problem in the world out there and a passion of mine, which kind of fits to solve this problem. And that's when things begin to happen.
Okay. I think you explained that very well. Brilliant idea, your first entrepreneurial venture in a sense. And I think you explained those key components very well, not just for that first idea, but for every subsequent idea that not just you, but I think every successful entrepreneur needs to have. So what was next for you in a sense? You were a student, you were someone in school and things like that. What was kind of like the next pivotal moment? What did you do in school? What did you do upon leaving school, in a sense? Or for many of us here in Penn, our journey kind of like comes to a halt after high school is done, or we take a little break to go to college. What about you? How was it like for you?
So my school venture continued for a very long time because in Germany, to graduate from high school, it took 13 years. And 13 years is, like, I felt this is like really long. And I always felt a bit disconnected from the subjects and from the structure. And, I'm a very rebellious guy. I don't like people to tell me what to do and what to learn and all that. So I always had this strong objection towards like being told like, this is what you have to learn today, because I had my own agenda. I had my own interests and passions, and they were not really reflected in this curriculum. So as soon as I kind of checked off my mandatory school time, age 18, I think, my first burning desire was to get out there and to do something outside of school. So I was very sure that first thing I want to do is I want to experience the real world. I want to join random businesses, companies. I want to be an intern. I want to be a freelancer. And And first of all, I want to study jazz. So I was so passionate about playing saxophone and learning how to play saxophone and jazz music. So after school, the first thing I had to do was the military service, which is also mandatory those days in Germany, which I kind of objected. And the second option was to do civil service for 2 years. So I had to serve, the authorities for another 24 months until I actually was released, from my little dog leash. Like, this is what you have to do. And I could eventually make a decision, with what I'm going to do with my life. And the first decision I made was, I want to go to Munich. I want to join this jazz school, and I want to study jazz. And that's what I did. So I went there. I studied jazz. It was exciting. It was freedom. Of course, there was not much money involved. So I started cooking at the restaurant. I became like far from chef, but I was cooking. First, I was like just a dishwasher, and then I started cooking pizzas for people, and that was my source of income. And daytime, I was studying jazz and learning jazz, and also figuring out that maybe playing my saxophone will not gonna pay for the rent for the next years to come. I really couldn't see that happening. So I ventured into neighboring industries, which happened to be sound engineering. So I became a sound engineer, again, not by going to school and learning how to be a sound engineer, but simply by joining a company as an intern. Now, I just went to there was a Bavaria film studios near Munich, and they were hiring people who would carry cables, like literally carry the cable behind the camera. And that was my entry point into the show business, so to say. And from carrying the cable behind the camera, I got to meet the sound engineering people who were like the cool guys at the back, sitting behind the big mixing desk. And I got to chat with them. I managed to get an internship with them. And I think 1 year later, I was a freelance sound engineer who was going for shows and driving around. And the highlight of my sound engineering career was to actually be a monitor mixer for Prince. Which
that is a highlight of
yeah. We came back from a gig, and then suddenly the phone rang, and it says, well, Prince is there's an after gig happening tonight. There was a big open air show in Munich, and they said, well, there's an after gig happening at 2 a.m. Can you guys just kind of come and prepare for this gig? We said, okay, so who's playing? They said, oh, Prince. Well, right. So we prepared for this gig, and actually Prince was playing 3 meters away from me for 2 hours, and that moment I knew this is the pinnacle of my sound engineering career. It's not going to get any better. And I think, and that kind of reflects on the cycle of businesses. I think that's when I knew, okay, my sound engineering career has ended here, because this is as good as it gets. So now I'm going to look into other things to do.
That is absolutely amazing. I would say, even if you become, I don't know, the person who sweeps the floor after the show for Prince itself, that's the highlight of some people's life. It'd be the highlight of my life in many ways, but unfortunately, I doubt I'd get that opportunity. So amazing. But again, you started off as an intern, and many of us go for internships. Many of us work at places and things like that. What made you stand out? What made you actually kind of springboard your own freelance career in sound engineering? Were you just that good that everyone was like, we've got to help him out in a sense? Or are you just like the rest of us and had to learn the ropes and had to do some things a bit differently in a way?
I was not really an outstanding sound engineer. I think I was okay. I was doing fine. I like music, and I like to be around bands and music and live shows and all that. So I was doing fine, but I was not a rock star in my field. So which was also a reason why I kind of moved on, because shortly after that, this thing called desktop publishing came along. And these computers, which had a mouse and you could click on things and you could do things on your computer. That was quite a new thing in the early 90s. And my friend came across this. He was a graphic designer of some sort, and he said, "Hey, why don't we just join forces and do desktop publishing?" I mean, what do you mean? Well, you have to buy a computer, and then you can do graphics on your computer. You can do layouts like books and leaflets and flyers on your computer, and you can sell this to companies. It's quite a hot market. I said, well, okay, let's do that. So I bought myself my first Apple computer. And I remember when it arrived in my house, I had no idea what to do with it. So the the delivery guy switched it on, and I kind of moved around this mouse, and I saw, oh, there's a menu. Okay, there's a menu on top of my screen. So let's go click there, and then I saw items popping up. So I released the mouse. I tried to click the items, but as soon as I released the mouse, the items were gone. So I was sure this thing is broken because I cannot click on any of the items. So the concept of click and drag had to be introduced to me by the support line. And that was and I guess that was the first day of my graphic design and online marketing career. So from there, I started to freelance as a graphic designer. I learned a few programs like, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was Freehand was one of those. I mean, they're not even around anymore, these applications. And yeah, from there, I went into this whole thing called multimedia, which was also a new hot thing where you can do interactive things, when you can do CD-ROMs, which will load in your computer, and they will have like interactive stuff going on and movies and all that. So that was the next big thing, which I embarked on as an intern. And as a result from that, I started my graphic design and online design agency in 2000, where we started working with big clients like Siemens and EADS and Infineon.
Again, that is quite a leap. You went from, I'm just saying, like, if someone, like, if I just met my computer for the first time in history today, I don't think I'd be able to start working with any big clients anytime soon, especially in graphic design, multimedia design, which is still something that is like rocket science to people like me in today's day and age. So what actually, in that process of going from learning about how do you use these softwares to getting these big clients, what actually was pivotal to you in your learning journey, in a sense?
It's always about people. So it's always about being really 100% committed to what you do, being committed to learning stuff, and not sich selber schonen, we say in Germany. So it's just to go all in, So I think that's one, and people do take notice when you are all in, when they can see like, okay, you are willing to take the extra effort, you're willing to spend the extra hours, to get things done, and if you don't know how, then you have to go and find out, So, and that was that was the situation of my whole life. If I don't know how, I just have to go and figure it out. And I think that's one part of the equation where people actually take notice that you are serious about what you're doing, that you're passionate, and that eventually you become like really good at what you're doing. And then people will take you along. So the only reason we ended up working with Siemens was because an ex-colleague of mine in an agency I worked with previously as an intern and then as a freelancer, she kind of went to Siemens, she joined Siemens, and she remembered me. And as soon as they had needed someone to work on multimedia projects and online stuff, she kind of simply referred me to them. And we ended up doing like really serious business with them for several years. We were marketing their mobile phone divisions, because those days Siemens was actually building mobile phones. And fun fact, they actually came up with one of the first phones who had a camera built in, like a photo camera. Those days, this was like a completely new thing. Nobody have ever heard of a mobile phone with a camera, and people were thinking like, why camera? Why would I need a camera on my phone? I mean, my phone is just for calling people. Why would I need a camera? So our job was to create like a marketing campaign explaining people how it could be cool to take a picture with your phone. So we did this in Flash. I mean, those days, that was the only way to do animated stuff online. So we created photo stories. We showed like people are taking pictures, and we were kind of selling the fact that taking pictures could be cool, which today I think is such a weird thing to even consider.
So essentially, you are to blame for selfie culture and for all of us right now who are
It's
on
all my fault. Yeah.
your fault.
So
In a way.
because I did
You-
such a good job promoting
yeah,
cameras and mobile phones, now people are so obsessed with selfies. Yeah.
yeah. I'm saying you did such a good job that it caught on, and then now it's spiraled away. Like, oh gosh, Dano, like if you could clamp
Yeah.
down and stop yourself, then all of us would be normal human beings who are not as
Mm.
narcissistic as some would claim. But anyway, it's okay. I quite enjoy my camera.
Hashtag joking. Yeah. Let's just be very sure. Hashtag
Yeah,
joking. Yeah.
joking,
Okay.
joking.
I'm
I
not
do
really
enjoy. I love my camera and my phone.
taking
And
the credits for bringing up the picture culture, but yeah, we were part of it, and it was, looking back, it's like such a weird thing, to do, like promoting cameras and phones. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not necessary today. Yeah.
no, but I think that is amazing. And if you all have any questions for Dano, do drop it in the chat below, and we will take your questions as well. But on that note, in a way, you also started going into other kind of like meandering into other subfields on the computer world. Let's say you went into website design, you went into digital marketing. How did you even start learning these different skills in a way? I mean, you were good at graphic design, you were good at doing these campaigns in a sense. Why not just stick to that? Why did you kind of like go and learn these other things? Or did they all come naturally as kind of like a subset of what you were already doing?
Yeah, I mean, life and business is constantly changing, and I always found myself in a situation where some kind of opportunity opened up, and maybe another opportunity closed down, and so I kept on just following the path of what to me was clear. Like, we can call it following our heart. There are like times in our lives when it becomes clear, okay, we have to do this now. I mean, that's a unique opportunity, like taking on the Siemens project or taking on the EIDS project. These were like very significant opportunities, and I was always in this kind of mindset, like, okay, this is an opportunity and I want to take it, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it work. By the time we took on this EADS project, where we were promoting this Airbus A380, which until today, I think the biggest aircraft on the planet, those days it was in progress. So for 6 years, we were doing the digital marketing, so to say, for this project. And it was a huge one, and we won a pitch, and it just an opportunity that came to us. And whenever this happened, I just was passionate enough and brave enough, I would say, to take it on, even though I had no clue how to do this. And this is how I always ventured into new fields of work. It's just like Amazon. I mean, I had no clue. I didn't even know that you can sell on Amazon in the first place until I learned about there is such a thing like selling on Amazon. And then I just went there and I thought, wow, that sounds good. So there's something that resonates with me. There's an opportunity. There's a door that opens. And what I did, I would just like run through it and just do what it takes to make it work. And
Okay.
this is how all these transitions in my work life happened. Yeah.
I think that's very important. It's like you follow your heart, you set that goal, and then as you said, you make it work in a sense. It's either you put your all into it, and then when you start working with Prince, then you realize that you've hit your maximum and you're going to the next level. After this whole arena, I would say, of online world, you also went on to do trading, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that is like a 360 pivot from the whole
Oh, yeah.
industry, multimedia industry. Why did you decide to do that? How did you even transition out into something so weird and so new in a sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm afraid I don't have a short answer, but let me make it as concise as possible.
Don't
So
worry.
when I was doing my agency work, right, I came into this field being a designer, being the guy, who does the graphics, who kind of, I was a creator and I was a designer. So then these big projects came my way, Siemens, EADS, like things which were impossible to do on my own. So I started engaging people, hiring people. So I built a little company, like an agency, where we were 7 people at some point. What nobody told me before that it's a completely different game to run an agency than being a graphic designer. Nobody told me about leadership, about human resources, about accounting, about preparing all these pitches and making clients happy, making my employees happy. And there was so much work involved with this, and I was like completely overwhelmed. So I really hit the limit of what I could do, because I'm willing to learn, but there was a limit, because I was doing the art director work, like finalizing all the creative stuff, and at the same time I had to manage the company and take care of all these other things which are included in running an agency. And that was a really, really intense time. And I would say I came close to like a burnout stage where I just didn't know how to do this. And I didn't know how to ask the right question. The right question would have been, who can help me? Who can do this? But for my whole life, I was stuck with my how, and that's another big mind shift I would really recommend people to consider is when we face a problem, when we face a challenge, the natural question we ask is, how am I going to do this? But another very good question to ask is, who can do this? And only after asking who, we can actually scale a business. Because as long as we ask how, we're stuck in freelance mode. So we will always keep on. I mean, it can be fun, it can be exciting, and it's great to learn new things, no doubt. But if we keep on asking how, it's going to be always a one-man show, and I'll be the guy who's doing the work, until we learn how to ask who, and then we will find people who can do this maybe even better than us. I mean, if I had hired a project manager and maybe an accountant and people who would actually take off the burden of this whole management part from me those days, I think this agency could have gone like much further than it did. But I simply didn't know. And yes, I maybe that's why I missed out university education, because I didn't learn how to be a manager and how to do all this. So I didn't know. So I was overwhelmed. So at some point I said, you know what? And also Siemens canceled their mobile phone projects, and this Airbus 380 was launched. So some projects simply finished. And so I was again at this decision crossroad where I thought, okay, what am I going to do now? So am I going to like kind of pull through this thing and pay my employees out of my savings, or am I just going to shut down and do something else? And I decided for the second. And trading was like it was always kind of on the back of my head, because the logic was, if you want to reach financial freedom, you need to make a certain amount of money, and then you have to manage it cleverly, like smartly. You have to make this money work for itself. Now, if you start looking at how to make money grow by itself, you start like with investment funds and maybe whatever, and you ask for your bank for advice, which I did, which was a horrible idea. Every time one of the biggest banks in Germany, as soon as they saw like money coming into my account, they started giving me advice. They started like telling me, oh, you could invest in this fund. We have this very special investment opportunity here. Why don't you invest with us like 20,000 euros? And I said, of course, you are the bank. You know your shit, right? Here's the money. And you know what happened to this money? It just went down the drain, like down to zero. Like not just like no growth. It was just completely wasted. So I learned the hard way that maybe taking investment advice from my bank was not the way to go. So again, I took it into my own hands and I asked the how question, right? So then you start checking like how to invest here, how to invest there, and then you start trading, investing. First, like you go like long term, and then you think, okay, maybe it's better if I go like weekly basis. And then after some time, I found myself being a day trader, because the time periods become shorter and shorter, because you see all these opportunities happening on a shorter time frame. And but when you're a day trader, that's a full-time job. So so I found myself trading, and I kind of liked it, because previously my life was so stressful with all these external, like managing people, managing clients, all these things. I experienced it as like being a major source of stress. And I kind of liked the idea of being alone in front of the screen. And not having, there was no client, there was no employee. To me, that was heaven at that time. At that time, I thought, wow, this is great, because there won't be any more problems left. I was wrong, but I had this idea of, just me and the lap and the screen, that's just fine. So let's do that. And I did that, and it was okay for a while, but then I also had to learn some lessons. And one of the most important lessons I learned in trading is that it's actually all in my head. And that
Okay.
brought me into a whole new trajectory of looking at life and looking at and what's going on with me and how I actually create my reality, which eventually led me to meet you guys and Ilango and, you know, engage with people who are questioning the way our reality is and who are kind of taking this angle of like, maybe reality is not set in stone. Maybe reality is something that we create. And this is the and this thought actually came out of my trading experience, because I was desperately fighting the charts and I had to like face reality, like, dude, there's no one else around here. There's just you and the chart, and other people are doing great in the same situation and you're struggling. So there must be something, you know, which is not connected to other people. There must be something which is actually happening in your head, and it's about you. So I had to take responsibility for the nonsense that's going on in my life, and I did. So from there, I started to look into like a new angle of looking at our beliefs. I mean, at my beliefs, looking at what I think, looking at what is probably like limiting my reality, my horizon. What are my limiting beliefs, and how I can change this, how I can actively take charge of what's going on in my head, of my thoughts and my feelings and my actions, and eventually become like a creator versus a victim.
That is very beautiful, and I'm going to be honest, from my limited experience of meeting several aspiring investors or people, aspiring investment bankers, this is not really the way that they think. They're very quite much rooted in reality, I'd say. So the fact that you actually had this thought and had this realization that, hey, maybe it's something to do with me, maybe I'm the one who's kind of like creating this reality around me, I think that is very profound. So you had kind of like this realization, which not many of us have. And what did you do next? Did you continue asking how, or did you start asking who could teach me this? Where could I learn this from? What was your next thought process, in a sense? That yeah.
Yeah, of course. The question who, even though I was, it was not like consciously on my mind, but I realized that no one in my pastime environment, not to speak of my family, and there was no such. It was not a thing, you know, to question how we think, to question our thoughts and our actions and emotions, and how all this is connected together. So yeah, I had to look outside, you know, my comfort zone, and part of it was going to Malaysia. I mean, I didn't go to Malaysia to meet Ilango, but yeah, when I came to Malaysia, you know, it was a completely new scenery. I went back into DJing, and I realized that looking at charts is maybe not fulfilling for the rest of my life. So I kind of moved away from my trading game, which I still was in when I came to Malaysia. And yes, you can just go wherever you want if you're a trader, because it doesn't matter which part of the world you're staying. So I came to Malaysia being a trader, but then I also realized, okay, this is maybe not enough to be trading for the rest of my life. So I want to engage with people again. And I did. And part of it was my Amazon journey, and part of it was also to then being introduced to Ilango, who turns out to be like a real good, how you call that, Sifu, I would say. Yeah, just a mentor who was really deep in this whole mindset stuff, and who I learned a lot of, and I'm still very grateful for until today.
Okay, so Ilungo Tiago is the founder of ET Ideas. He had weekly talk shows back then. Now he's retired, unfortunately, from ET Ideas. And when he had these weekly talk shows, I used to go. I remember meeting you there and things like that. And I'm going to be honest. I've got to ask you this. I've got to ask you this for years. But what was that first thought you had in that talk show? Like, did you go, "Oh, this is what I'm looking for," or "What on earth is this, and what does this mean?" In a sense, were you a skeptic? Were you a yeah? Well, what first ran through your mind when you were in ET Ideas, in a way?
I was so I met Ilango through a fellow Amazon seller actually. So we were all in this group of Amazon sellers, and Steven, I think is his name, and we were talking about stuff, and he said, well, I know this guy, he might be of help, and so he introduced me to Ilango. So Ilango met me at a cafe in KL Central somewhere, I think in New Central it would be. And after that, he just asked me to come along for this weekly show you guys had, and I was quite blown away actually by this environment. It was, I think they had a talk show with Ramya, and this whole first session, I felt like he was talking to me. I felt like all the stuff that he was talking about environment and how our environment shapes our reality and how we need this supportive environment. And I thought, yeah, I mean, this environment feels really like something I would be very helpful for me right now, like an environment of people who take responsibility, who follow their passions, their entrepreneurial dreams. And that was a very eye-opening moment to me to be on this first show with Ilango at the TRDS. Yeah.
Okay, and I wholeheartedly concur. I think learning about how my reality is shaped has been something so personal to me, and I think that I'm so grateful to ETIDS Ilango for actually introducing me and until today guiding me to actually see how that works. Because I feel like, as you said, I think Ilango just has a way of speaking directly to everyone's heart in a sense, and addressing the questions that you don't even know you have. But this knowledge, this information about how you create your reality, how did that affect your business? How did you bring it into your new world of Amazon-esque entrepreneurship in a way? Did you see yourself? Did something change in you that made you look at things differently? That made you run the business in a different way?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say it's just this whole idea of taking responsibility and just taking a step back and looking at what's going on in my head, and what are the thoughts and how am I judging things, and how things could be looked at from a different angle, and how where I'm in my own way, when my thoughts and my actions and my words do not align sometimes, when I want this thing, at the same time I talk bad about it and I feel weird about it. So to have this alignment towards a goal, I think that was a very important message for me to learn, to align towards a goal and to really be mindful of how my words and thoughts and actions do support this goal or they don't. And I think that made a big difference in my life, and it's something, I think it's a lifelong learning curve, and I don't feel like will ever be done learning this art of taking responsibility and educating my own mind. But it's the most exciting journey actually I can think of right now.
I agree, and I think it's amazing. And you founded Elixir, you grew the business, to a point where it was even acquired in 2019 for a sizable sum of money. Congratulations! I think that's many entrepreneurs aspire to do that in a way. How did you grow the business to such a stage in a way? I mean, it surely wasn't easy, and you were kind of like a central figure in this whole thing. So, what again was your secret sauce in a way, or like how was that journey from your point of view?
The secret sauce was to not give up, I think, because there are, when you do this stuff, there are many reasons for you to give up and just throw in the towel and say, you know what, F you, this is impossible. But yeah, I kept going, and I had to solve a lot of hows. And I mean, looking back, I think one of them essential, I actually had a live webinar session about selling my Amazon business just last night. So it's still very fresh on my mind. It was a 1-hour session. We were just talking about this process of how to profitably sell your business. And going through all this experience again, I thought that, again, talking to the manufacturer was one of the key success factors for me. Because what we learn in all these courses to sell on Amazon in 2014, it was these courses were quite big, and I was one of the students. And so you go to Alibaba, you find this product, you ship it in, you package it, and you sell it. Okay, that's a good starting point, and that's what I did. But then I actually went to Shenzhen and I met the manufacturer of this product, and that opened a whole new perspective, because when you have this personal connection, suddenly people come up with ideas that they will not post on Alibaba, and then suddenly you have these projects which they have in their drawer which haven't really manifested yet, and you start to exchange ideas. And and so we were kind of together, we were building my next product, by exchanging ideas of what it should be, what they could do, what it would cost, and how it could work. And this, I think that was like a major factor for me to grow my business, to have this cooperation, with this manufacturer. And then, of course, you have to solve a lot of problems, and you have to learn a lot of things, and you have to do almost anything under the sun for a business. I mean, you have to take care of the physical part of the production, of the packaging, of the shipping, of the logistics. And at the same time, you have to be a marketing ninja, because all the sales after that, they depend on your skills to create email, great listings, to rank, to get reviews, to do stuff outside Amazon, to do Facebook campaigns, to create a brand page, to build your brand, to do press releases. I mean, there's almost nothing that is not included in this Amazon model. And so I had to learn a lot, and it wasn't easy, but it was also very exciting. And I think today I'm kind of I'm benefiting from all this experience and knowledge I had to gain during that time. And last not least, I mean, the selling experience was another very exciting one. I mean, to build a business is one, to be in a business and daily operations is one thing, but then to actually make this extra step and go and find a buyer and put in, like, list it for sale and go through the process of selling it, that was a very interesting experience as well. And what I call the 360 entrepreneurial badge, where we kind of fulfill the cycle of starting, building, and actually letting go of a business.
Okay. And again, you had a brilliant business, Luxury. They basically produce luxury and I think premium Apple accessories. Everything I remember was well packaged, was poised, was extremely lovely. But now that we hear, I think the hardship behind it, the fact that there were so many angles to look at it, as you mentioned, from the branding perspective, from the daily operations perspective, from the sales perspective. I think that is something that entrepreneurs today struggle with. Like just in like getting your product to a customer alone, between that you've got branding, marketing, and sales, and then you've got after sales service, and then before even that you've got liaising with your producer in a way. How did you, as one person, manage all of these different things in a sense without losing track of one field at a time? Because personally, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you focus too much on the sales, then you've got to like readjust your brain to look more at the production. Or if you focus too much on the processes, then you lose touch of what actually your clients need. So where did you find that balance, and how would you recommend we attempt to find that balance as well?
Oh boy, I have been off balance many times. It's not like I was balanced all this while. I mean, I was just bouncing around, and I was putting out fires as much as I could. Yeah. And sometimes there was a short period of smooth sailing. But yeah, most of the time you just, and I still was in this how mindset, and the how mindset just keeps you glued to your desk and 20-hour days. And that's what happens if you're in the how mindset. And I didn't really get this, the trajectory to hire. I mean, I did hire VAs, but I didn't really figure out, to ask the who question. This is something which only recently came on my radar. But yeah, I just did what I had to do. And again, I think I just pulled through because I had this determination, this passion to do this and to solve the problems. And there were a lot of problems, and I just did my best, to solve them one at a time. I did ask for help. Of course, I wasn't a mastermind of people who knew what they're doing, and I did get advice from smart people. But yeah, there was no such thing as being everything is like balanced. That was just like doing whatever was the most urgent and important thing at the time, and solving these things. And then I mean, today, the next step would be to find someone who can do this for me. I would find a solution, write an SOP, and then find someone who can kind of follow up on this. And this is how I intend to run business today, to create processes, to find people who can do this, and then build from there.
Okay. And I think that is something that we've all got to write down in, I'm sure everyone's diligently taking notes from your session. So write that down from you guys as well. And there's so many gems of what you said. And I think that all kind of like accumulates into the fact that you actually did sell your business and more. Was it like how it is in the movies where someone just comes up to you and offers you a blind check and says, Dano, whatever you want, I want this business in a sense. What was the real story behind it in a sense? Or should I start scouting out for people with suitcases full of money right now itself?
Well, actually, I think if you sell your Amazon business today, it is a bit like in the movies because there is this phenomenon of aggregators. And there's this incredible success story of this company called Thrasio. And they have been this fastest growing business in history that reached like from $0 to $2 billion of market value within 2 years. And I think this has never happened in human history that the company grew at this pace. And the way they did it is by acquiring a bunch of Amazon businesses and improving them and kind of bringing them all under one umbrella and having all the expertise in-house to optimize all these businesses, which were run by like one-man shows like me, and they were obviously not optimized like in all their aspects. So today is actually, I saw like the multiples, like the evaluation of Amazon business is much higher than when I sold it. But back in the days, no, it was not like people were queuing up at my doorstep. I had to go and talk to brokers, and I had to find the right broker to work with me. And then after they look at your business, they agree to work with you, then they do an evaluation, and then they determine the market price of the business, and then they put it on their platform. So then you are like up on a platform, on a marketplace where interested buyers can go and check and see what kind of business they would like to acquire. And then you have a sales call, so they start asking you all the questions like, what is this? What is that? Why are you selling? Trying to find fault, of course. And then after a few phone calls, then you find the guy who is actually serious. And then you go to the steps of writing this LOI, this letter of intent. And then you go and then you give them access to your business, which feels very awkward because suddenly somebody's poking around in your business and you don't even really know them. All you have is a letter of intent, which, this intention could change very fast.
You had a letter that says, I will not rob you, and then let them into your house.
Yeah, you're like standing. Yeah, it's a really awkward situation to let people like dig through your business without having, they could just walk away and say, I'm not interested. That's all. They could be a competitor actually. That's the scary part. But yeah, but there's no choice, so you have to do that. And when everything is fine, then you write the purchase agreement, and then they get into the process of they will send the money to escrow, like a third party who is holding all the funds in the transition process, and then you transit the business to them. So they get the key, they get all the accesses, all the assets, all the contacts, all the email addresses, all the social media assets as well. And then there's another due diligence process where they can still like check a second time if everything is as described, which is another scary time because you don't know, maybe this guy finds something he doesn't like, which somehow is not as described, and he could still walk away, But it didn't happen. So the buyer was happy with what he found. So this whole process was kind of finished in 3 months with this person. But it was a very intense journey. So to let go of the business and to have this interaction with the buyer and of course we are very attached to our business. We feel like there is an emotional aspect to it. And it all comes in a quite intense time. But at the end of the day, it's also a very rewarding experience to let it go and to get some financial time freedom.
No, I think that's brilliant, and it's very nice to hear that whole human part of selling a business in a sense that the feelings that you have when you Yes, because I feel like many times we're excited, like, but then when things actually happen, that's when our emotions, the other parts of us kick in. And what was the part that surprised you the most about, like, that you didn't expect at all during this process of selling the business?
I didn't expect how long it would take and how many documents I would have to read and understand and sign and agree upon. You're dealing with all this lawyers' English, and I'm German, so it was not fun for me at all to read through these pages upon pages of thereby hereupon stuff. So yeah, that was surprising. But I was also surprised by the goodness of this guy who actually bought the business. So he did not play tricks. He did not kind of push me to the limits of the boundaries of the contract. He kind of released the funds within 2 weeks. And yeah, so it was scary, it was intense, and it was fun at the same time. And yeah, but I can recommend to have this experience to anyone. And I think the biggest learning point, or the lesson here is, I think, is to look at the business with a life cycle, to look at the whole thing from beginning to end, and to maybe like imagine like an exit scenario, and to look at what should this scenario look like what is the size of the business, where are you, what does your team look like, what does your client base look like. So kind of to imagine this end goal, as we say in ET Ideas, and then to actually work towards that goal, and to also have the courage to let it go and say, okay, this is enough now, so now I'm moving on, I'm doing something else, which is a choice. I mean, we don't have to. We can keep a business, of course, if we like to, but I mean, I think every few years we should just ask this question: is this the best way for me to spend my time and my life at the moment? And what was the right answer 3 years ago is probably not the right answer today. So even though, like, those days I was like super excited about building an Amazon business, maybe today it's not what I want to do. So maybe today I just want to move on. So for me now, it's like helping other entrepreneurs and business owners is more exciting than selling products on Amazon.
And I think that in a way, I think when we previously talking about it, it's like kind of like being mindful that of that life cycle. It's kind of like almost like in ET Ideas, we talk about the 4 stages of life in a sense, where you're learning, experiencing, then you contemplate, then you let go. So you essentially went through that with your business. So you kind of like penned down the 4 stages of being a business owner. Very, very, very.
Yeah. Not much time to contemplate though, but yeah, it kind of did. I did go through the cycle. Yeah, I did let go.
Yeah, and today with DefDevice, you help others kind of like you ask that question of who can help them in a sense. You actually help others build their businesses. And okay, first of all, we've got to get this out of the way because it's from the audience. What does DefDevice stand for, in a sense? A question from the audience.
Oh yeah, it has a very mystical meaning. DEF are my initials, Dano Edward Falk.
Oh, so you didn't do some astrological calculation to come up with
No.
But it's a nice
thing. My agency in Munich was called Def Design. So this Def kind of thing was kind of like my chop, which I put on many of my businesses. So yeah, it's just Def. It's Dano Edward Falk, and then design was when I was all about design. Now device is more like something that would be of use for others, and I like to think of DefDevice as the who for those people who I needed back in the days, because back in the days I was the guy like just doing everything myself, and today we can be the who can help those people who are struggling to kind of manage everything themselves, or just who want to grow and want to have a partner to grow and exit their business, and we can be the who for that, the who how.
I think that's really makes sense.
Like we say in Malaysia, how?
Yes, that's our trademark sense. But Okay. So but I think that's very poetic in a sense because as another one of the audience members comments in a sense, it's who is a pretty good point in expensive thinking, and now it's something that I think you combine those two things, who and how, that you provide as kind of like a service for others, so that they don't have to kind of like make the same mistakes that a new business owner would make. Which again, on behalf of all business owners, thank you very much, Dano. But there's so many things that you cover in Dev Devices. You help with e-commerce strategy. You help with people specific to Amazon businesses. How do you actually help these businesses remain competitive with so many other people out there? I would say the e-commerce world is a bit more saturated now, especially with the pandemic, when everyone has decided that that's the only thing that they can do right now. How do you make sure that your clients remain competitive? How do you yourself remain competitive in your whole entrepreneurship journey in a way?
Wow, that's a big question. Okay, so how do I remain competitive? Well, I don't really think of competition so much, but I think we are unique in the sense that, first of all, we know exactly what it's like to be a business owner. We are not just like this agency who tries to sell stuff to them, but we understand the business owner's perspective, because I have been the business owner and I know what I would have needed back in the days as an agency service and what they should have been looking for and how they should be sensitive and aware of my actual business needs and not just about selling me a Facebook campaign. So we understand the business owner's perspective, and as a consequence of that, we look at strategy first. So if you tell me as a business owner, if you call me tomorrow and say, "Hey, I want a website," I won't, my response will be, "Why do you think you need a website?" So we question, these kind of decisions, and we question the overall meaning and the function of whatever you would actually need next in your business. Maybe the most important thing is not a website for you right now. So we look at the big picture. We look at your company, where you're standing, what you're doing, how you're using your existing online assets, how you're using traffic, how you're using your customer database, how you're utilizing all the other assets like social media around you. Depends on what you're doing, of course. And then we will come up with a strategy to tell you, okay, so the best next step for you to grow would be to make use of this area, for example. And one example would be, people are so, everybody understands website. Okay, great. We need a website. But then what happens with the people who come to your website? So many of people who we clients we meet, they have all these leads lying around, and they have maybe a website, but they don't doing anything with the leads that come out of the website. They're not utilizing the existing customer base to activate them, to talk to them, to engage with them. And the website is actually just an instrument to bring in new leads, right? But if you're not doing anything with them, your website is wasted. It's not going anywhere. So we look at the strategic big picture of things, and that's, I think, how we can best help our clients to grow, by not simply selling them a service which they think they need, but we actually question them, and we will find out what is it actually that you need right now. And then we make a plan, and then we can grow together. So we also like to work with clients over a long period of time to be like a growth partner for them, and not just like an agency quick fix.
No, I think again that's brilliant. I agree from point of view as someone who runs a startup that does websites. You'd be surprised with the amount of people who either think that a website is going to solve all their problems and they're going to get 1 million sales overnight and become
I know.
Or either on the alternative side, they just feel that they need something which actually is not relevant to them, or actually that they don't have the current resources to utilize. And I feel like part of what I've been maybe not the best entrepreneur, but telling them that maybe you don't want to start so complicated, start simple in a sense. But that's actually been always something that's helped my clients. And knowing that there's people like you out there to bring them a step further, to help them grow their business, to look at the bigger picture, well, I think that's very heartwarming to hear. And especially with all of your amazing experiences, I have no doubt at all that your clients are going to reach the limits and they're going to soar beyond, I think, what they would have done without you. So thank you so much once again for being on our show today, for being on Changing Changing Reality. For all of you who'd like to get in touch with Dano, do check out DefDevice. They've got a lovely website where you can also get in touch with Dano himself. And I would highly recommend checking them out and finding out more about their services if you are a business owner in that stage of growth, because it's time for, like, maybe we stop asking how we get things done, but who can help us get things done in a way. So once again, thank you. So
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me, Harsha. It was a big pleasure to talk with you today. And thanks for all the people out there listening. Appreciate your time.
All right. With that, my name is Harsha. We've been interviewing Dano Falk today here on Changing Reality. It's been a lovely session, and we'll see you again next week, every Friday at 10 p.m. EST and whatever time that is in your time zone as well. Next week, we will be having the executive director of Disney ABC television production, Miss Roxanne Bernadali. So please do join us again for that session, and we look forward to having you for our future episodes as well. See you guys around. Until then, bye.
You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.